Welcome to the Agent Bridge podcast. We're your hosts, Brandon Baca.
And I'm R.L. Hessen.
The Agent Bridge is the proven path to real estate success without the burnout. All right, episode 3. Here we go. And we haven't really decided on the title. Something like, should I get a real estate coach? When do I get a real estate coach? Something optimized for, SEO.
Yeah.
We're kind of playing with that a little bit, but we do want to talk about coaching and is it an essential as a new realtor? Should you get real estate coaching? All that stuff. So I would like to, before we get into that, RL, what's your experience been? You probably have, and I already know this, you have been coached and you've been a coach. So can you tell me about your experiences with coaching, just generally speaking?
Yeah. I've been a professional development coach. I've been an executive coach. I've been a coach for cyclists. I was a cyclist coach for quite a while. I've got a cycling background. And then I've been coached. I've had a mentor that kind of led me through the healthcare leadership trajectory. And he's been a longtime mentor. I still reach out to him from time to time, personally and professionally. And then, I've had, kind of business coaches. And, I've leveraged real estate coaching firms as well, just to kind of see what other people are doing. You and I have been to some conferences to try to get a better understanding of what people in other markets are doing. And I think you can always learn, no matter how far you are along in your career, no matter how much you think you know, there's somebody out there that knows something maybe even just different than you, not necessarily more or less.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've had so more psychology oriented coaches around, personality types. I've had real estate coaches where, I'm trying to get to a particular place in real estate and need some coaching from someone who's been there. I've had fitness coaches, all across the spectrum. So what would you say in terms of people in a professional, like moving to professional setting or becoming a professional for the first time, how essential is coaching to your success?
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's critical. Not only are you learning from their past experiences to hopefully pave a more efficient path, but there's so many other factors. So there's an accountability factor. Yeah. Like, if that's something you need, I personally don't typically need the accountability piece as much, but there are times where life gets in the way and you think you're too busy, and an accountability partner helps. But I would say it's ultra critical to help you kind of weed through the noise and get somewhere faster than you could have otherwise by yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I'm not like you, I do need the accountability. I perform best when I've got someone to be accountable for. And also when I might have a stick versus carrot approach sometimes. So there was a period of time where I was struggling in getting to the gym with a trainer. And I said, listen, I want to make an agreement with you that if I don't show up, that the training session costs me double. And so I knew there needed to be that a little bit of accountability, or the stick versus carrot, where, hey, I need a little bit of negative reinforcement to make sure that I show up.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I agree. I think coaching or having a coach helps you step outside of yourself and see the bigger picture. And that can be really challenging, especially as you're entering into a new career, or maybe you're at a point in your career where you're frustrated or you need help or things aren't working quite like you anticipated. You need somebody who's not in it to tell you what's going on, right? To ask the probing questions and then also have a path for you. I think the best coaches do this. They ask you questions that lead you to self-discovery.
I couldn't agree more. In Origins, the first episode that we did together, we talked about goal setting and we talked about reach goals. Yeah. That was what I always need help with. So the accountability, like I would wake up at 4 a.m. and ride my bike every day, no problem. Like that was easy for me. It was not having the self-discovery to know what I was capable of, so that I would actually push myself harder than I thought I could to get to where I needed to be or wanted to be. Based on something that really came from a coach, that they had to really determine, hey, the numbers say, and this is back to cycling, but the numbers say that you're capable of this. I didn't think I was, but someone to do that analysis for me outside of me, right. And then kind of push me to get there.
I find that as a coach, I find most scenarios people are far more capable than they think they are.
Yeah, almost universally true.
Yeah. And so it's almost like you need someone to identify for you. Well, first of all, self-evaluation is extremely difficult.
Very.
I mean, you're in your head all the time. You know all the junk that's floating around in there, and it's very hard for you to see in yourself, hey, I'm capable of so much more, because you see you're self-critical. Most people, I feel like, are like, that didn't work for me. I'm not good at that. And the reality of it is, if you have someone that has insight and asks the right questions, they discover very quickly that you're capable of so much more, and the steps that you can take to get there, and help you discover that for yourself.
Yeah, and even leadership coaching, I find this is true as well. Like you don't realize the influence you have over other people, and sometimes a coach can help lay that out for you, like to help you really understand how much influence you do have, so that you can leverage those powers to help people get to where they need to be.
Yeah,
to be a better coach.
I find that, where people go, hey, this is what you're good at.
Yeah.
Right. So use that particular skill set more to develop that greater level of influence or greater level of success. So yeah, I just find it's interesting. I think if you're getting into, I don't care what you're doing, having a coach is, to me, an essential in creating progress beyond yourself.
Yeah, and a good coach is going to figure out, what does Brandon need, what does RL need from me right now to get to where they want to be, and they're going to figure out the best ways to push you to get there. And these are all things that you just described that you can't do yourself. You're not as good at doing yourself as someone else who's evaluating you.
Although I will tell you, one of the frustrating points in getting coaching is sometimes I just want the coach to tell me what to do. Right? Just like would you just tell me what's wrong, so I can sort of like move on? Because sometimes I'm like not in the mood for self-discovery, or for that coach to ask me, even though I know it's good for me. It's like, I'm just tell me what I need to do.
That's probably how all the agents feel, that when they come to us and they bring us problems, not solutions, and we're like, bring me solutions, not problems. That's probably how they feel. Just tell me what to do.
Just tell me what to do. Yeah.
So that's very interesting. I've never thought about it that way.
Well, but the reality though is, like, once you adopt that process of asking questions, this is what I find is, when your coach asks questions of you, when you start to run into emotional barriers, you start asking questions of yourself. So what they're essentially doing is developing a habit of self-discovery for you as the individual, to ask yourself the questions like, why am I feeling this way? What is the roadblock? Identifying the roadblock. So they're basically giving you the skill set to be able to solve problems at a higher level.
That's right. And normally, I mean, I don't know if you feel like this is true, but normally if you sit down with a coach or an accountability partner or whomever, and you start to ask these questions of them and start to think about the process holistically, usually you kind of arrive at the answer before they've even given you a chance to finish, but just because you've really just thought the problem through, you've sat down, you've explained it to someone else, and you're like, oh, I think I actually know what to do now.
Right. Yeah. So how do you choose your coach? And this is something we kind of talked about a little bit before, this podcast, in terms of like, how do you select a coach? But what's your process for selecting someone?
Yeah, great question. I think it depends on what I need at the time. So we talked about this a little bit. We seem to have somewhat similar philosophies here, but I think, you described you needed accountability. That's not something I typically need. So I'm not looking for a coach that's an accountability partner. I'm looking for a coach that has a skill set that I don't have, or an underdeveloped skill set of mine that I want to improve on, and specifically lean in on that. And I always like to have a coach that really understands me as a person, really knows me as a person, and knows where my strengths and weaknesses are, so that they can really hone in on very specifics of what I'm trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, for you guys that don't know, RL is one of those like freaks of nature that is super highly disciplined. And, if he says, hey, like, this is the process for doing this, he just carries it out. He doesn't have these emotional barriers. I find for myself, I'm can be kind of a roller coaster emotionally, and can do things on feel. So each of them, have their benefits and or strengths and weaknesses. But for me, the accountability is an essential. That's the other thing in terms of me selecting a coach as well. that's something that's very similar. Is I want somebody to kind of dig in and get to know me a little bit, to make a human connection, and discover, what I'm good at and what I'm maybe not good at, and then help me move to the next level. But
And stylistically too, I mean, it sounds like you might want a coach that's going to do like weekly or daily or somewhat frequent check-ins.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm okay if I had a coach and they, send me an email once a month, say, here's kind of what I think we need to work on, and then just check back in with me a month later. Like I can do the process and planning piece on my own, and I can be disciplined, but I might need certain direction. So that's where I think we differ. And that's where we'd be looking for two different types of coaches.
Yeah.
One coach wouldn't, quote unquote, fit all for us.
Yeah. I mean, you need to ask yourself the question, like, what am I trying to accomplish in this particular phase of my life? And this is something, we did a webinar earlier today, and we were talking about, moving, making adjustments in your life, accomplishing stuff. And it's interesting, when you're on this sort of journey to accomplishment, I kind of lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
You tell me. I can fill in while maybe you're thinking about it. So
yeah, it'll come back to me, but go ahead. What were you going to talk?
Well, I was just going to say, one thing, I'm going to give a little bit of a plug to Ten Oaks here, because one thing that we have that I feel like no other brokerage has, or at least not one that I've been exposed to has, is that you don't necessarily have to find a coach that's outside of your organization. In a lot of cases, you're joining a brokerage and, you basically need another real estate coach because your broker's just there to maybe solve super complex problems, but not really there to mentor you or push you along or grow your business. Whereas I feel like we are a coach. We always say this, you always say this, we are a coaching and training company inside of a brokerage. And that's our number one goal, is to be that coaching and training company. So people don't really have to look outside. So I will just throw that plug out there for Ten Oaks is like, I know most of the people that listen are Ten Oaks, but we have people obviously outside of our brokerage that listen as well. Just find a brokerage that's going to mentor you and be a good coach so that you can start to learn to grow your business early on in your real estate career.
Yeah, I completely agree. You just need that outsider objectivity, right? You need somebody to go, all right, help me identify what I'm good at, what I might struggle with, help me identify a game plan. And really good coaches, they will help you use your strengths, right? Here's the other thing that might be a sort of like a misnomer in the real estate industry, is that you have to have a certain personality type to succeed. Not true.
Definitely not true.
You can, I've seen all across the spectrum, people who are highly analytical, people who are highly social, and everything in between, because there's not one type of person out there that you're selling to. Some people are going to more naturally connect to certain types of people, right? And so, yeah, your personality is not an indicator of whether or not you're going to be successful.
And a good real estate coach is going to meet you where you are.
Right.
Like they're going to have that life experience to understand most situations that you find yourself in. They're going to meet you where you are and then take you to where you want to be. So that a lot of finding a coach is that it's finding someone who can meet you where you are in your career path and then take you to whatever that is, that next space that you want to be in.
Right. So, yeah, I would say in selecting a real estate coach that you typically want to have a connection, although I can see somebody who says, well, I want their sort of past record of performance before I, make that decision. I don't know that there's a right way or a wrong way, but there needs to be some way that you connect with them and feel that they are the path to your
There has
success.
to be a level of trust, or else it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't trust that this person can teach you anything, first of all, you probably need to check your your mental game here. But that you can learn something from anyone, but you need to trust the fact that they're taking you where you want to be.
Yeah. By the way, and let me kind of divert a little bit and talk about something that you just casually talked about, which is the sort of concept is the subordination of the ego and being coachable, which I find is the highest indicator of success in people, is that they can be taught and that they can listen and take instructions and sort of like have that sense of humility. Like, look, I'm just going to tell you right now, you don't know everything. right? There's no way you could. And you don't need to prove anything to a real estate coach or really to anybody. So I say, like, subordinate your ego, be humble, be coachable. And I think being coachable is your fastest path to success. And I've seen with real estate agents, and I've met with people who are, owners of businesses. They're like, hey, I'm not really looking for a coach right now. Or I don't need coaching. And I go, you have the absolute wrong mindset. Like, everybody in my mind needs coaching. It's in some area of their life.
Yeah. I mean, you can learn something from anybody on this planet, even if it's what not to do in a certain situation. Yeah. You and I have a similar thought process. We just have this like thirst for knowledge, good or bad. Like even if we read a book and we're like, I don't really agree with a lot of that, but I learned a lot. Like, because you're walking away, you're constantly wanting to know more and more about certain situations or certain topics, or whatever it is. But you're right. You have to let that guard down and be coachable and understand that you don't know everything and you can't know everything.
Right.
And there are people out there that know loads more about you, more than you, and just be willing to understand that.
Yeah. Every interaction is an opportunity, right? To your point, RL, where it's like I'm learning what to do or I'm learning what not to do. But both of those are lessons and can be, sometimes the learning what not to do is the more powerful lesson.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do we ensure the effectiveness of coaching? And this is where I see a lot of people tap out, is with the accountability or with this sort of instruction where they might run into a roadblock emotionally and don't know how to move forward. So how do you ensure the effectiveness? And one of the things is like, make a commitment. And some coaches will have you sign something that says, hey, I'm committing to this program, which I think can be effective. But really, I think it's about mindset. And again, that humility. It's like, okay, look, I need to commit to this program because I really need this. And the other thing that I would tell you is you're probably going to fall off the wagon at some point. You're probably going to hit a place where you go, okay, I'm at the ceiling emotionally. I'm at the ceiling physically. I'm exhausted, whatever the case may be. You're probably going to hit a ceiling. And, I think I remember you telling me about, at coaching cyclists where you would have, they would kind of get in this emotional state and it was really hard to move them past that.
Yeah, it became therapy sessions in some cases. But, to use a fitness example, it doesn't even have to be cycling, but, if a coach came to you and said, hey, I want you to do these 3 workouts this week, and then we're going to reevaluate next week, and you just go off and you don't do any of the workouts,
right.
That coach is going to drop you. I mean, they're not there just to take your money, give you workouts to see no results and then move on. I mean,
right.
they want to work with people who want to be coached.
Right.
So to ensure the effectiveness, I mean, bottom line, like you just said, you have to commit and you have to do your part. If you don't, then, you're wasting the coach's time and you're wasting your time.
Right. Well, I think my mindset, and I'm not saying I always perform to this level, but I think my mindset going into coaching is just like, I want to be an A student. Like, I want to do my homework, right? I want to be interactive. I want to, be a good communicator, basically sit in the front row of the class, if you will, in terms of interacting with that coach. But yeah, a good coach will also, they're probably going to test your limits a little bit to see where you are emotionally. And I would just say, number one, make a commitment that like, hey, even if I fall off the wagon here, I'm going to get right back on. Even if I get knocked down, I'm going to get back up. And the sort of analogy that I can think of is, you remember those like those like punching bag clowns that we had as a kid, and you'd knock them down to the ground, they'd pop right back up.
Yep.
I think that needs to be your mindset in coaching, is like, you're going to hit breaking points and you're going to get knocked down, just like pop right back up and get back on it and move on.
That's where finding a coach that really gets to know you a little bit and understands you and your personality helps because they're going to identify that probably right before it happens. Maybe you hit a breaking point and they didn't notice it coming along, but they're probably going to notice it right before it happens. Or if they notice it when it does occur, they're going to know exactly which buttons to press to get you back where they want you to be to continue on the path. It's just part of the holistic process in being coached and being a coach.
Right. The other thing that might be a little more practical is like you're typically going to leave a coaching session with objectives or tasks or something. And because we all get busy, right, you might forget about them or you might pick them up later in the week, and then you've made it impossible for yourself to accomplish the things from your last coaching session. So I find just a very practical thing to do is if you have a coaching session to schedule 30 minutes the next day to review your objectives from the week and then plan out what days you're going to get those done.
Yeah, that goes back to our time management podcast. But yes, I mean, having a planner, writing it all down, whether you use Full Focus or whatever, and then keeping yourself accountable throughout the week as you're working towards them, super critical. Nothing's more frustrating for a coach than knowing that that person's capable, giving them the path to success, and then watching that never unfold because they didn't commit or didn't know what they were supposed to be doing or take notes or whatever.
Right. So here's another question. What should coaching cost? Right? Like how much money should I spend on coaching? And the reality of it is that I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish and where you are in the spectrum of your career. But, you can pay $250 a month for coaching, or you can pay $2,500 a month for coaching, or you can pay $25,000. I mean, there's a whole spectrum. So I think, initially if now one of the things for us, again, and I don't mean this to be a commercial for our real estate company, but the coaching is built into the program. It's built into the commission splits and it's results oriented. So you're not paying a monthly fee for the coaching. It sort of is built into how we do things for us as a real estate company. But, I think a good starting place is going to be somewhere between $500 and $1,000 a month. Right, if you're getting started as a real estate agent, and I would encourage you to invest in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could even be more profitable for you than lead sources that you might be paying that or more for.
Right.
Because they're going to give you that path to generate that business even from your own sphere.
Right.
A good coach will.
Right. And as you move along in your professional career as a real estate agent and as a, let's say you start to build a real estate team, you're probably looking at $2,000 to $3,000 a month for that type of information and the quality of coach that you need to move you to the next level.
Yeah. The more experience you get, the more specialized your coaching has to be. So you're looking for very specific people, and those specific people typically have, large numbers of people that they're coaching for that very specific thing. So they're more expensive. So the further you get in your career, the more expensive typically the coaching gets.
Yeah. The other sort of benefit of coaching that, is huge is you're typically going to get grouped into some sort of mastermind in coaching, so that, I think good coaches do this is they're going to put you in rooms with people who are very similar stage of growth, where you guys can learn from each other in that self-discovery process. Or I see what this guy's doing over here, I should probably do that, because, a coach is still a human being. They're going to want to, so they don't know everything possible, right? And in whatever field they're in. And also when you're at the top of your game in your field, things are changing a lot. Like in real estate, like what's going on with the market right now, right? What are you seeing here or there, whatever. So there's a sort of active education that's going on, and that's going to happen in mastermind sessions. So you can kind of be on the cutting edge of whatever industry that you're in. But yeah, the other benefit though is the networking element.
Yeah. I mean, as you become a coach and as you are a coach, you get further and further away from the daily tasks that a real estate agent would do. And so there's a lot that does change. And so bringing into the fold a lot of people that are going through the same things that you're going through at that moment, and kind of listening as the coach to be able to pitch in and help where your experiences would allow, to me is invaluable.
A lot of my largest business opportunities have come from being in a coaching mastermind setting where I've met people that, hey, you need to talk to this person or you need to talk to that person, or it may be the actual individual that I'm in the room with that we make some sort of connection that leads me to a new level of my business. So being around people who you want to be like and who are sort of simultaneously growing is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
I find.
I mean, the last coaching conference we went to, sitting around the fire, I mean, we were with other brokers doing probably in the same general space that we were in. I guarantee you they walked away from those conversations doing a little bit of what 10 Oaks was doing, and we walked away from those conversations do a little bit from what they were doing. Like, everybody's sharing ideas. You don't have all the answers. Somebody else has got a good spin on it that you might be able to incorporate into your world, and that's how you learn.
Yeah. And I think generally maybe the sort of overwhelming theme of this is, again, being coachable and surrounding yourself with people who are growing. Being in general space where people have the mindset of growth, education, achievement, and, the coach as the sort of leader of that.
Yeah. I mean, how much would you walk away from if you're sitting at around that same fire and you're like, I know it all. My brokerage is perfect. Like you're not going to walk away from many great ideas. Like you're not listening. You're not really hearing what they're doing to try to figure out how you incorporate something like that into your brokerage.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Just to kind of recap, listen, you need to get a coach, right, to be successful. At some point, I would encourage you sooner rather than later to get a coach, and to commit to whatever the coaching program is. Again, to RL's point, you're going to learn from your coach, even if you have a coach that you may not, let's say you do 6 sessions with him. You're like, I'm not crazy about this coach. You actually learned something from that interaction. You go, okay, well, what kind of coach do I need? So I find that over the course of your career, you're going to have many coaches for different areas of your life. And, but I would encourage you to make the commitment in whatever program you're in. Do you have any final words?
No, I think that's right. I think committing to the coaching program, being coachable, we said that over and over during this podcast. I think it's crucial. And then identifying the right coach for the right situation that you're in, and just learning how to really find the person that's going to lead you where you want to be for whatever specific thing that you want to work on. All that stuff's critical. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, for all you listeners out there, I'm so grateful that you guys take some time to spend with us, and hopefully this has been beneficial for you.
Yeah, we tried to make this one sub 30 minutes. Our last one, I think, went 47. Yeah. So this one's a little more consumable, I think, for a shorter drive. So hopefully that helped.
All right, guys, have a good one.
All right. Bye.